The Trap Set will always be available for free, but we rely on donations from our listeners. Please visit our website at thetrapset.net and click Donate. Subscribe to our show on iTunes, and if you enjoy what you hear, give us a review.
This is Joe Wong. Welcome to The Trap Set, where each week we explore the lives of drummers. I want to play something for you. You're hearing Little Dawn by Ted Leo and the Pharmacists, featuring my guest, Chris Wilson on drums. Chris joined the Pharmacists in 2001. His deep, loping groove, deceptively nuanced touch, and remarkable musical instincts helped the band become one of its generation's most compelling acts. Aside from the Pharmacists, with whom he recently recorded a new album, Chris works with bands such as Hound, Open City, and Acquaintances. We recorded this conversation earlier this year while Chris was on tour with acclaimed band Titus Andronicus. And now my conversation with Chris Wilson.
Well, my mother, when I was born, she was working at Pizza Hut in Hot Springs, Arkansas. My grandparents would always give her shit for spending all of her tips on the jukebox. And, you know,
Was she living with your grandparents at the time?
Not at that time, but she and my father split up when I was about 4 or 5.
Okay.
And we moved back into my grandparents' house.
Okay.
And my dad died when I was 7, and I'm honestly not sure what he did for work at all. Because when they split up, I never saw him again.
Never?
No.
Did you go to his funeral?
No.
Did they tell you when he died?
Yes. I didn't really know how to process it. And the only time I'd seen, about 2 years before that, my grandfather's mother died. And that was the only time, still to this day, that I've seen him sob. And I just didn't know what any of it meant. But yeah, there was some weird.
Your grandfather sobbed when your father died.
No, when his mother died.
When his mother died.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
But when my father died, they just showed me the thing in the newspaper, and they were like, "Your daddy died." Like, it didn't really mean anything.
What does it mean to you now as an adult?
I rarely think about it. I regret my grandmother, or my grandparents on his side, his parents. I lost touch with them until I was 17 years old.
Did they live in town?
They did.
Okay.
They did. They actually, my father moved to Fort Smith, Arkansas, and that was he got remarried, and that was where he died. So he had kind of a separate life at that point. And my grandparents moved there with him, and when he died, they moved back to the home that he grew up in. And I lost touch with them until I was 17 or 18, and I would go there, and my grandmother would hug me when I'd come through the door. Then she'd go into her bedroom and cry.
Oh my gosh.
And then she would come back with a bunch of photos and then go in her bedroom and cry because I look a lot like my dad. So it was really difficult for her. And I regret it so much, but it was too much. And she died maybe 7 years ago or so. But I hadn't seen her for like 10 years.
Were your parents young when you were born?
Yeah, my whole family's very young. Like I had a great grandmother until about 10 years ago. She was 94 years old, but my mother was 20 when she had me. So,
are you an only child?
I have a half sister. My mother got, so yeah, that's another part of it. My mother got remarried right before or after. I forget when. I meant to call her to get the timeline correct, but right before or after my dad died, she got remarried. And she was leaving the house and asked me if I wanted to come and live with them. And I was like, no, I'm fine here.
You were settled at your grandparents' house.
I was. And also my stepfather was an asshole.
What was his deal?
He was a policeman.
Oh, God.
And got kicked off the police force for using excessive force.
Oh, shit. And then they had a daughter together?
They did. So that's the good thing that came from it. And
so are you close with her?
Yeah. She lives in Oklahoma City now. And I have a nephew. She has a son. Yeah, we're tight. But my mother and I, like, she moved back home with my sister when I was 13, which was obviously a difficult pubescent time for me.
So she broke up with your stepfather
Yes.
and moved back to her parents' house when you were 13.
Yeah.
Okay.
And and I'd not left.
So there was about a 6-year window when you were being raised by your grandparents.
Yeah.
Were you really close with your grandfather? Was he a father figure to you?
Definitely. Yeah. And my grandmother, I love to death. I've her name tattooed on my wrist.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
What kind of music was on in the house when you were a kid? You mentioned that your mom was a jukebox fanatic.
She was.
What kind of stuff would she put on the jukebox?
Well, also, yeah. Also, I my earliest musical memories were driving around in this red Camaro that she had around when she was a single mom after she had left my dad, and she had an 8-track player and would play the Eagles' greatest hits. But one of the earliest things that I remember was the song Rhiannon by Fleetwood Mac. But there was another song called I Can't Tell You Why by the Eagles. Those two songs, for some reason, are the two first songs that I remember hearing. And
when you hear those songs, does it remind you of like how the Camaro smelled?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah?
Yeah, and the leather seats in the back. And
how you would stick to them?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, summer in Arkansas gets hot, you know.
Did you have lots of friends as a kid?
No. There were 3 children on our block. We didn't live in a neighborhood, really. It was our street would cut between 2 golf courses, and it was basically a little bypass to get from one road to another.
Do you golf?
I suck at it. My grandfather, though, is in the Arkansas Golf Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what's his story?
He was born and raised in Hot Springs. Knows the history of the entire town, like, throughout. He inherited a furniture store from his father. He was actually a minor league baseball player. He was in the White Sox farm team as a catcher, and his father kind of pressured him into coming and taking over the family business. So he did that, and he was just a businessman throughout his life. And he had a funnel cake company called Flossie's Funnel Cakes, which is still around.
Because hot Springs is a tourist town, and
yes.
funnel cake is the official food of tourists.
Yes, even outside of Pennsylvania Dutch country. And so we spent.
Did he ever meet Bill Clinton?
Yes, he actually delivered furniture to.
I thought you
Virginia.
were going to say that he delivered funnel cake to the Clintons' wedding or something.
But he delivered, he delivered furniture to Bill Clinton's mom, who lived in Hot Springs till her death. And that's another thing that Hot Springs is known for, is being Bill Clinton's boyhood home.
Right.
So, yeah.
Then another place is known as his birthplace, I think.
Hope.
Yeah, Hope, Arkansas.
Yeah, which is also the watermelon capital of the world.
Okay.
Yeah. People get, those towns got to latch on to what they can.
Oceans lay between us and the things we think we need, but I've known many who will gladly swim together.
I think I was a very happy kid, but then, again, puberty happens, and you, not everyone, but, I did have a bit of a temper in my late teens and early 20s, which I never took out on any person, but I would take out on inanimate objects. But I do feel like drumming kind of got me through a lot of that in a way, and maybe saved me from taking it out on people, because I had this, physical release.
Were there shows?
I was thinking about this recently.
I've played shows there, but I'm not sure if there always have been.
There had not always been, and I set up one in my grandparents' garage that, if that wasn't the first punk rock show in Hot Springs, Arkansas, then I would love to know what was, and not as a challenge that I was the first person to do it, but I'd love to know about it, because I'm sure that things happened. It was a small town, but I'm sure that things happened before that.
Was it a magically spiritual experience?
I feel like I was a little bit. I've always been very critical of myself, and I think it was more like, I got more focused on what I did wrong than being in the moment. And also, it was like 10 people in my grandparents' garage. So
you've always been critical of yourself.
Yeah.
Do you recognize that as an attribute, or do you see it as a burden sometimes?
It has been a burden at times, but I'm way more at peace with what I do now.
Because you're better, or because you're more at peace with yourself?
Well, so I've been a big fan of like math rock and the whole Chicago thing forever. And I remember the first time I saw Euphone, I just wanted to quit playing. Like, I will never be able to do that.
We're talking about Ryan Rapsey.
We are, yes.
Now, I saw him for the first time in about 96. He came to a basement of a house where I later lived. I was still in high school. And it was just him and a keyboard.
Yep.
And it was amazing. And I don't like using that word amazing, but it was amazing.
Yeah.
One of the best things I've ever seen.
Absolutely. And I remember just wanting to quit playing drums. But
so you didn't feel inspired. You felt like you felt like he whooped your ass.
Yeah,
and
just,
like, why
that
bother?
was like the biggest mic drop ever. And I was like, I'm done. And it took me a little while to just, like I said, come to peace with seems very dramatic. But just like have the realization that I don't do what he does, and he doesn't do what I do. What I do has value.
Well, he probably could.
Oh, yes, he could. Yes, he
Just
could. And I've ripped off many things from that guy. I probably owe him a couple royalty checks.
After this, we're gonna
if there were such a thing.
After this, we're gonna exchange Euphone licks on my drums, okay?
Totally.
You're doing shows out of your garage, you're skateboarding, you're listening to Minor Threat and the Minutemen and Dead Kennedys.
And riding my skateboard over to the boombox to turn it down every time curse words come on.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because?
My family's very religious.
Oh, so you were raised in what religion?
Presbyterian.
Did you believe in it?
I was definitely scared of hell. I remember waking up when I was maybe 4 or 5 years old in the middle of the night and just being terrified by the notion of eternity. Like my little brain could not grasp that concept.
I had a similar experience when I was about that age, but it was because my family were atheists and I was grappling with, the notion of death.
Right.
And that's
like what
that
happens
eternity
after.
too. Yeah. Or just the notion of becoming nothing.
Right. Yeah. But when I turned 18, I had a job and didn't have to go back to church anymore, and I didn't.
Did you have any desire to go to college?
I went to community college for 1 year.
What did you study?
Nothing of any note. I think one of my classes was teaching you how to study and be a student. Like I was that remedial.
Because school didn't interest you?
It didn't.
So what did you do? Did you skip school in high school?
No, I was there every day. But
it just didn't resonate with you.
I would get thrown into detention and Saturday school and everything for not doing my homework.
Yeah.
So I couldn't. I think that's a problem with education in this country, is that not everyone can be taught in a uniform way. And I couldn't learn in that way.
Have you subsequently figured out how you learn best?
I'm still figuring that out, I think.
I mean, if you had it to do all over again and you were the superintendent, what kind of program would you create for kids like yourself?
I just like being more personal with the kids and like finding their interests. Because I was in remedial classes. I'm not a unintelligent person. But I was in remedial literature, for instance, and we just had a 500-page book that said literature on the cover and had excerpts from books.
Right.
I didn't read an entire book until I was 21.
Which book did you read when you were 21?
I think Breakfast of Champions might have been the first one.
Did you feel like you had direction at that point? Were you aiming to become a drummer? Yeah. Professionally?
I don't think I had professional ambitions, but one more thing about my the high school era.
Yeah.
When I was a senior in high school, my guidance counselor asked me what I wanted to do, and I told her I just want to play music and travel. That's it. And she said, "Have you thought about small engine repair?"
No way.
Yeah. True story. So
Did you ever think about small engine repair? Did that fuck with you?
That comment fucked with me, for sure. And
has there ever been a time in your musical career when you wished that you would have done something like small engine repair or some sort of union job that was practical and you make a decent salary and get benefits?
There have been times that I regretted not learning a trade, not necessarily fixing lawnmowers, but
what trade would you want to know?
I worked in a bunch of restaurants, but I was never great at it. But there are things that I could have taken from that. And
did you work back of house or front of house?
Mostly back, a little front, but mostly in the kitchen. And a lot of my friends are woodworkers. There are things that I could have learned from them. But, I wanted to do this music thing.
This episode of The Trap Set is brought to you in part by Colectivo Coffee. Handmade coffee since 1993. Check them out online at colectivo.com.
What were you daydreaming about at the time?
Getting out of Hot Springs, Arkansas.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you do that?
So this is kind of another thing with me being in the background. There was, by 1994, I graduated in 92. By 1994, there was a great DIY scene in Hot Springs. And I helped set up a couple of benefits for a venue that opened the summer of 1994. And then right before it opened, I moved to Little Rock.
I think that when you and Ted joined forces, along with the rest of the people that joined the Pharmacists at around the same time, something really magical happened. How did playing with the Pharmacists change your life?
Oh, I mean, completely. It was, I mean, we did build a following throughout that, the first year and a half or two that I was in the band. But it was the first time where, where you would book a tour, show up to a show, and know that there would be more than 5 people there.
Did it feel like musically you were elevated to a new level when you joined that band?
Definitely.
What about working with these particular people did that for you?
Well, our bass player Marty has called his songs deceptively difficult. 'Cause I mean, in essence, they're pop songs, but there's a lot going on there. And I remember when I first joined, he had just finished recording Tyranny of Distance, and I ran into him on tour with Matt Pond, PA, at South by Southwest, and we, because during that Holy Childhood tour, I'd been like, hey man, you ever need a drummer, just let me know. And then I saw him at that South by Southwest, and he was like, I'm leaving on tour in 2 weeks. Like, let's practice next week. And then 15 years later, I'm still in the band. But I remember that our first practices, I was just like, I knew that record inside and out. But it was rough the first couple practices. And I remember talking to James Canty, who was playing guitar at that point and still is. I remember talking to him about it, just, what a hard time I was having. And he was like, well, I mean, you're playing Brendan and Seb's beats. Like, you're not just going to fall into that. So, not only learning those 2 amazing drummers' beats, but like making them my own.
You guys have been playing together for 15 years?
Mm-hmm.
How does the personal relationship work, and to what do you attribute that longevity?
Well, we'd both been doing it, including James and Dave, our first bass player at that time, and now Marty.
Is Dave the guy with the big hair?
Yes.
Okay.
Dave Lerner, incredible bass player.
Great bass player.
Yes. All of us had been doing it. We'd been in touring bands for a long time at that point. So I think that by the time we got in that band, we knew we weren't children anymore. So there was no, you'll be on a tour with certain people and they'll intentionally push buttons and, try and rock the boat in certain ways. But we were all just like, we wanted to make this thing work. So we were just, we'd already been through enough and yeah, just wanted to make it work. So,
do you drink a lot?
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm trying to justify this now. I drink often. I drink every night on tour for sure. But I don't I never get blackout drunk. I've never been that kind of drinker. Like, I drink often, but I know my limits.
How many drinks do you have before you go on stage typically?
Typically, like maybe 3 beers or so. Try to keep it to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, a few after. But yeah, I've never been that much of a liquor drinker. It's always, and I've never been I've smoked weed maybe 10 times in my life, and I've never tried hard drugs in my life ever. Like, I know what beer is going to do to me, so I just stick to that one thing, and I know my limit very well. And I've always been very fearful of that if I did even try those things once, I would be dead.
Crying for the hungry friends, and you're crying for the struggling friends, and I'm crying over you. Crying over mother's dead, and now you're crying over some other's head, while I'm crying over you. You're working so hard.
Are you married?
I was married.
Okay. How long were you married?
7 years.
And what happened?
We just we hit walls with things. We tried therapy and things, but we just drifted apart in a way.
Was it hard to stay close as somebody who's touring a lot?
I've thought about this a bit over the years, and like she was great when I was on tour, like very, very supportive and great, but that that probably was a contributing factor to us drifting apart. But again, she was very supportive, and we're pretty much best friends at this point. Like,
how long have you been split up?
Just over 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah. We live in the same neighborhood. We have a dog together still. She has the dog, but I get to visit it. But yeah, we get along great. We're super close, and but yeah. I mean, touring may have had a little bit to do with that.
Would you ever have kids?
No, I'd rather not. Yeah.
Have you always known that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, since I just always had this fear of what if my kid's an asshole and start.
I like how that's your fear.
Yeah.
My fear is like, what if I'm an asshole and I'm a terrible parent or something?
That has been always a fear too. And then, so every time I would say that, it'd be like, oh, you'd be a great dad.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about that, because part of being a great dad is, if your kid's an asshole, talking to him about that, him or her.
Right.
But my biggest fear is, what if that kid got in a fight and then I have to go and talk to.
What if your kid was super tough and beat the shit out of other kids?
Right. And then you have to talk to these kids' parents and apologize that you did such a terrible job to make them that way. But then, yeah.
Well, if you live out here, you can just get nannies to do that for you.
So if I just move out here, that's provided.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You get a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and you get a nanny with
man.
that star.
I gotta consider this.
Do you have ambitions moving forward?
Just keep doing this as long as I can.
Do you picture yourself touring and making records into your 60s and 70s?
If I make it that long, yeah.
Why do you
definitely.
say if you make it that long?
Do
you have a hard time picturing yourself as an old man?
Yeah, I do.
You're on tour with Titus Andronicus right now. How did it come about? How did you end up playing with Patrick?
Well, so the Pharmacists last put out a record 6 years ago, March of 2010. And we did the usual touring on that. And Ted had long talked about kind of scaling back on touring. So, I kind of prepared myself for that to happen, but I also did not ever think that scaling back would be 3 shows 1 year, 1 show 1 year, 7 shows another year. Like, I didn't think that it would go that far back.
So you were making a living as a pharmacist.
I was still working.
What were you doing?
I worked at a flower shop delivering flowers for a long time. And then I worked at a law office just doing shit work, like whatever needed to be done, filing and things. And I'm not qualified to work in a law office by any stretch, but it was a job.
Well, the touring slowed down.
Yeah. Well, luckily, that job that I worked on and off at the law office, I got offered a salaried position there. And I worked it for 3.5 years, and it was fucking weird, man. Like, yeah, I don't know. Just like the 9-to-5 lifestyle. I'd never fully done that.
Did you freak out?
No, I fell into it because, I don't know.
Did it feel comfortable in a way?
In a way, yeah. I mean, a constant paycheck was incredible.
Well, so Patrick Stickles calls you 4 days after you get fired from your job.
Yes.
Do you subscribe to any sort of like, do you think that things happen for a reason? Do you think that you just got lucky? What was going through your head? Do you feel like things have a way of working out?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I have been broke, but I've never been homeless.
Yeah.
And, I mean, yeah, there's, timing is everything in a way. Like, oh God, I don't know. Part of it is luck, I guess. But then it's hard to see something,
right?
Timing like that, and just be like, wow, like, yeah. These things might happen for a reason.
Do you fantasize about anything?
In what way? Like musically?
What do you wish for?
God, I don't know. I mean, I never thought I would be playing music on television. I never thought I would be on, Lookout Records or Touch and Go Records for that matter. Like, I've achieved this level of success that isn't success to a lot of people, but to me it's kind of perfect.
And it doesn't make you feel like you want more?
I would take more. And I mean, it's not like I'm going to stop working to be better and to
what is more. Well, what I'm trying to figure out is, what does it mean? What does more mean at this point?
I don't know.
Just
That's
continuing?
a great question, because I mean, I don't know if I would be comfortable ever.
Like, would you want to be in a band as big as the E Street Band or something like that, or the Eagles?
God, I don't know. That's such a different world, I think.
And are you a pretty happy person?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, yeah, since I outgrew my temper and worry, I mean, yeah, it's kind of a waste of time to be unhappy. I mean, there are certain things that happen in life that
sure
you can't be happy 100%
of course,
but I'm a generally happy person. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good place to end it. Chris Wilson, thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe. It's been an honor.
The Trap Set is produced by me, Joe Wong, along with Chris Karwowski, who also edits the program. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Trap Set, and visit our website, thetrapset.net, to subscribe to our show for free. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please donate to our show. If you can't afford to donate, please tell a friend and give us a good rating on iTunes. Send your feedback and guest requests to thetrapset@gmail.com.